رضينا بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم نبيا ورسولا.
Find us on Facebook at Salam Radio.
Assalamu alaikum, good evening, and thank you very much for tuning in to Salam Radio on 106.2 FM. I'm your host, Shaz Nawaz. Unfortunately, my co-pilot, Kieron, can't be with us tonight. Before I go on, as always, appreciate your participation. And there are 3 ways you can get in touch to share observations, questions, and engage. One is by calling us on 01733 602 133, or you can text on 07411 191 062, or the easiest way is to comment on any of the live streams on Facebook, YouTube, X, which is formerly Twitter, or Twitch. And as always, appreciate your support and your tuning in and your engagement. This week on Wealth Made Simple, I am going to cover 2 aspects which I think are very important. So a few weeks ago, Kieron and I did an episode on goal setting. And with the best intentions in the world, we all set goals with a plan to obviously execute them. But seldom do they all get executed efficiently. And taking action is by far one of the hardest things. And having an action plan and having a way to make sure that you implement what you intend to do is important. So the 2 parts that I've got for you today are, at first, I'm just going to set the scene for you in terms of some things you need to do to lay the foundations and the groundwork. And the second part is I will share with you actionable steps and tips for you to use. And I'm pretty confident you'll have at least 2 or 3 from this thorough and comprehensive list that I'm going to share with you to implement. And this will, I have confidence that it will help you take more action than you are at the moment. And if you're obviously an action taker and you get all your stuff done, feel free to get in touch and share with me what you're doing and how you make it work. Because I don't have all the answers. I don't claim to know everything, and this platform is all about sharing ideas, and sharing is a 2-way street. So I'm more than happy to learn new things and add to my knowledge base. So Kieron and I spent quite a bit of time on the episode a few weeks ago talking about how to define your goals very, very clearly. And it's always good to revisit those goals to make sure that they are relevant to what you want to achieve, and to make sure that you still have the commitment and the enthusiasm to achieve those. Once you've done that, it's important, I'd say, to develop a plan. Now, if someone like me, I like the plan to be very much detailed, and so it's actionable. So I lay out all the steps, outline what needs doing, who's going to do them, by when, and then have some kind of a traffic light system in terms of red, amber, green, so I know where we are in terms of progress. You could number it from 1 to 5, 1 to 10, whatever you want, so you can look at the progress. Alongside that, if you want to get stuff done, then make sure you assign responsibility, ideally to one person. Now, if you're working on your own, then pretty much everything will get assigned to you. But if you have a team, then it's important that you assign responsibilities very, very clearly, so everybody knows who's doing what in terms of their roles and responsibilities. With that, it's also important to set milestones, so you can track progress and you can keep and maintain momentum throughout your implementation process, because without that, you're not going to get a sense of achievement and that you're making progress. So seeing progress is going to harness more progress in you, because you can see that you are doing stuff. Alongside that, I think it's incredibly important, and this is a step that people tend to miss because sometimes we underestimate the difficulty of a particular task or the amount of time it's going to take, or we overestimate our own abilities. And therefore, it's important that you allocate the right amount of resource uh, to make sure that things get done. Now, resource isn't just about people and time, it could also be about budgets, it could be about tools, software, uh, other resources that you need to get the job done. And I always overestimate the resource we need, because then if we need less, we've done well, we're fine, we're under budget, so to speak. And I think that's important. Moving on from there, I think it's also important to uh, look at where the risk is in terms of what could go wrong, what may not get done, and then come up with a backup plan to ensure that you remain proactive. Uh, the next bit, which again I think is important, is to make sure you have a plan and a tool or system to regularly monitor. So if you're looking to implement a system to achieve your goals, then you need to make sure that you monitor it, because I think it was someone from McKinsey who said what gets measured gets managed, and what gets managed gets done, or something to that tune. So monitoring and measuring is important, and with measuring and monitoring, it's also important to have a very clear communication plan. So who reports to who does what, by when, so everybody knows the chain of command. And if people have problems, they know who to go to. And if they need support, they know who to go to. With that, you also need to make sure that you have the right resource in terms of personnel, and have a very clear training and support mechanism and budget. And this is where usually people tend to cut corners, because, like I said earlier, they either underestimate the challenge of the task, or they end up thinking about their own expertise and they think they can overachieve. And both those aren't good, because they lead to things not getting done. And if you're anything like me, once something slips, there's a tendency to allow it to slip even further, and before you know it, it kind of falls off your radar, or you lose the enthusiasm, and then what you plan to do and you intended to do doesn't get done. So make sure that you have a training and support mechanism in your plan, and with that, also make sure that there's a clear feedback loop, so that people can feedback progress, they can feedback when they need support, they can feedback problems, challenges, issues, call them what you like without getting into the semantics of the whole thing. But you need to make sure that there is a clear feedback channel. And very importantly, as we're kind of setting the roadmap here, is make sure that your plan has some slack in it. And I'm a sucker for having deadlines, because that's the only way that I find things get done. But I like to give people enough time to get things done rather than keeping it too tight, because then people start slipping. And like I said, once one person slips, or one task slips, or one step slips, then you've kind of created a scenario where slipping and not doing things becomes acceptable well before you've kind of accepted it. So you don't want to go there. I'd rather someone takes a bit longer but gets stuff done on time every time, rather than keeping it too tight, too pressurized, and things don't get done. So make sure there's adjustments and flexibility in your plan, because the only thing guaranteed in a plan is that things won't go to plan. So all these things I'm sharing with you here will help you make sure that your plan gets done. Another challenge that people have is, you set the goals, but who sets the quality control, as in the minimum acceptable level? And that's not always clear to people. And a good way to start this really is say, what does good look like? And translate that, interpret that, give people clarity on that, as in a good standard is X, whatever X may be, for you, so that everybody knows what they are working towards. And then you can obviously measure that against what they've done compared to what you wanted them to do, and then that gives you a clear opportunity to see if things are to the level that you wanted, and if they're not, then you can obviously adjust accordingly. Next on the list I have for you is build certain stages where you can celebrate achievements. And this is very important, and I'm going to talk more about this in the second section of this particular episode, because most people are good at beating themselves up, not so good at celebrating achievements and success. And I think it's important you do that, because that gives you a sense of achievement. It builds good work ethic, good team ethic, and everybody feels like that they get something out of it and that their work is recognized and applauded. And the last thing to set the scene is make sure that you have a way to document everything, including the plan, the progress, the changes, the outcomes. And this is partly to see the progress, partly for future reference, and partly for learning, so that when you do something similar again, rather than starting from a blank canvas or a blank sheet, you've got something that you used previously, and you just use that and edit, adopt, amend as you see fit. So that's kind of the groundwork that you need to do once you've set your goals and your plan to go about achieving your goals. Now we're going to move on to some of the key steps that you can take to make sure that things get done. So you can call this an action plan. You can call this a do list. You can call it what you like. But if you follow this in detail, step by step, I assure you with confidence, having done this for a very long time now, that you are going to be able to achieve more actions than you would do if you weren't using this. And there might be some people out there who might be really good at writing stuff down, and once they've written it, they get it done on time, okay, every time. And if that's you, fantastic. You carry on doing what you're doing. But for the rest of us, we're fallible, and every now and then we trip up and we don't always achieve what we're looking to achieve. So if you're in that bracket or on that boat, so am I. So following this particular process that I'm going to share with you, I think you're going to find it useful. So try it out. Let me know how you get on and share your feedback. So the first thing clearly is you've set certain goals, and we covered this, like I said, in detail a few weeks ago. So you've got that, you know what you're looking to achieve. The next bit, and this is really important, is to make sure that you focus on one goal at a time. And again, depending on the size of your team, you can break this down to different people. And I think it's reasonably well known, and I'm not a psychologist or a scientist, but the human mind is reasonably competent at juggling 3 things at a particular time. So if you've got 20 goals and you try and do them all yourself, you're going to struggle. But I think focusing on one goal at a time gives you more opportunity and better focus, and I hope better discipline to achieve it. So make sure you give everybody one goal if you can. If it's a really big goal, obviously you can break it into sub goals, and if they're really small goals, you can have maybe 2 or 3 goals that one person could be looking at. But focusing on one step, okay, that next one thing is a very powerful concept. Once you've done that, then I think it's time well spent to understand all aspects of your goal, listing out all the different actions that need to take place with the timeline. If you don't have a timeline, then things don't get done within time, and then there can be a tendency to slip with the best intentions in the world. So research how best to go about achieving your goal, and also break it down into baby steps, actionable steps, because those actionable steps give you transparency, they give you visibility, they give you accountability, and they give you a roadmap to achieve the things that you're looking to achieve. And this is incredibly important because those baby steps are usually achievable and give you direction. And as I said earlier, make sure that you create a detailed timeline laying out each step, who does what, when, how. And I've done this for a very long time now, And I'm not saying I'm perfect, far from it, but we as in my team, uh, you have a pretty good track record in terms of making sure that we achieve the tasks that we set out. And that obviously comes through uh, many years of experience and many years of not achieving things, by the way. And then you go out there and you try and learn, how do I make sure I get stuff done? And some of it's experience, some of it's obviously mentoring, coaching, some of it's learning things from other people, sharing ideas, picking up ideas, reading stuff, consuming information. Okay, and that all of that should help you get better at achieving your goals. As I said in the first part of this particular episode, is you need to allocate the necessary resources, and I always over allocate. Because if I over allocate and we need less resource, we're okay. If I under resource, there's more pressure, more likely things won't get done, more likely that the quality might slip, we might create something inferior, and all of those things are not good. So under promise, over deliver. And with that, make sure you allocate more resource. Now, when you've got your action plan, you've broken your goals, you've broken it down into smaller goals or sub goals. You've now allocated them to your team members. They've got clarity on what they're achieving. They can do a bit of research or speak to colleagues who've done similar things to kind of conduct their own research into how they're going to go about achieving things. You've broken it down for them or with them in terms of actionable steps. And usually I don't do this step for people because then it becomes a bit too autocratic. I allow people to go away, think about it, brainstorm, talk to other team members, come up with their own action plan, share it with me. I'll then obviously share my own take on that in terms of my own experience, or I'll ask a few searching questions just to make sure that they've thought about things reasonably thoroughly, and that they understand the action steps that they have created. And then obviously you'll have your timeline of what gets done, and you can then prioritize tasks. And prioritizing tasks is incredibly important, and obviously you decide what takes priority. There are loads of different things out there that help you prioritize. Dr. Stephen Covey has got a particularly good system and a good matrix in terms of urgent, important tasks. I'm not going to go into that too much because that's his thing, but there's plenty of information available online and in his books to help you focus on that. But what I will do is share a quick story with you about a guy called Ivy Lee, who was introduced to Charles Schwab. And Charles Schwab was, I think, the chairman of Bethlehem Steel, which was a huge company in America. And he was introduced to Charles Schwab by, I think, David Rockefeller or someone of that particular ilk and magnitude. And I don't quite remember who. Sorry, in fact, I think it was Andrew Carnegie. Andrew Carnegie introduced Ivy Lee to Charles Schwab, and Ivy meets Charles, and Charles says, I'm looking to be a bit more focused. And Ivy Lee says, let me... and by the way, Charles was not a big fan of management consultants and people coming in to telling him what to do, because he was very successful and he knew what he was talking about. Anyhow, Ivy said, let me share one small thing that I think you can do every single day, and this will help you achieve your goals, okay, and your action plan more frequently and more often than not. And he said, you do what he calls a prioritize and a reprioritize list. So when you start, list out 3 priorities for the day, or for the hour, or for half a day, or for the week, whatever works for you. Let's just call it for the day. And then you list task 1, 2, 3. 1 being the most important. So you do that. Once you've done that, then you add a 4th item or a 4th action if you have one. And then you look at point 2, 3, and 4, and then you reprioritize depending on what is the main priority there. Just because task 2 seemed like the second most important priority, maybe the fourth one, okay, is more important now, or the one that you listed third, okay, has become more important and urgent. So you reprioritize, you do that, so on and so forth. But you only have 3 at any one time, so you prioritize and reprioritize and keep your focus. And then once he gave Charles this advice, Charles said, "How much do I owe you?" And Ivy said, "Implement it, I think for 6 months or a year or something like that. And then depending on how much value you get, you can pay me later." And as legend has it, Charles Schwab, I think, sent Ivy Lee a check for $25,000 or something like that. Remember, this is around the early 1900s. So $25,000 was a huge amount of money in those days. And because Charles had used this particular very simple system, remember, simplicity is what works. Trying to make things complicated doesn't usually work too well. Keep it simple, or at least simplify it. So it doesn't have to be simple, but simplify it the best that you can. And Charles changed the way he did things by using this repriority list, and like I said, gave Ivy Lee a significant amount of money. So make sure you prioritize, make sure you've got clear deadlines so everybody knows what they're working towards, because that's incredibly important. Without a deadline, nothing ever gets done, in my experience. And if you look at your own life, pretty much everything has a deadline to some extent. From the time we go to school and we do homework and we have exams, so on and so forth, pretty much everything that gets done usually gets done because it has some kind of a defined deadline. With that, make sure that you regularly track your progress, and breaking things down into actionable steps, which you've already done, and I've shared that with you, allows you to then have a timeline and then look at progress. And when things don't work well, I mean, don't beat yourself up or beat other people up. I'm just a fan of saying, okay, autopsy without blame. Something that hasn't been done, why isn't it done? Do we not have the necessary resources or the training and support, okay, available? Was the responsibility not assigned correctly or to the right person? Was it not communicated properly? Did it not have the right support structure in place? Or did something else come up, another project or something else that happened, which can be used as a valid reason for not being on track? And like I said, if you've allocated or over allocated resource, this should not happen very often, because you've got more resource than is needed, and therefore you'll be able to achieve the tasks. With that, make sure you adjust your plan as needed, and this is based on performance and feedback from your team. There's no harm in adjusting things and changing deadlines somewhat, and making the plan more detailed, or parking something up because it's not a priority anymore. There's no harm in any of those things, as long as you do it with purpose, and you do it because there's a good reason for doing it, and not because it's slipping, or people aren't doing what they're supposed to do, or things aren't being communicated properly, or they're going well over budget, which happens way too often, and you're thinking, this now has become unsustainable, unaffordable, so ditch it. And like I said, there's no harm in that, as long as it's a conscious choice. Absolutely works. So you can see here, and I'm kind of only going through a third of the list. This is quite detailed, but it's the detailed stuff that helps you make sure and make certain that things get done. So as I'm sharing this with you, just list all the different action points, and then work through these as you are working on your goals. And I kid you not, you're going to increase the success rate if you do this by a significant amount. So once you've adjusted your plan as needed, and you're tracking progress and you're making progress, I think it's extremely important to make sure that you reward yourself and your team members for meeting milestones, to keep everybody motivated. See, it's, one of the qualms I used to hear when I used to go out and talk to people as a business consultant or to their business owners, team members, employees. One of the common things they used to say was, we're not appreciated, we're not recognized. The boss is good at telling us when we fall short. He or she, they are good at complaining and moaning and telling us where we've not achieved what we're supposed to achieve. But when we do stuff, seldom, if ever, do they say thank you, well done, recognize that, make it obvious to everybody. They'll beat us up in front of everybody if you haven't done anything. And if they say well done, they'll usually do it in private. And that should be the opposite, by the way. If somebody hasn't done anything, share that with them privately, and you can pull them up. If they've achieved something which is worthy of notice, give them praise in front of the entire team so that they feel good about themselves. On that note, we're going to go to a very quick break. Please make sure you join me after the break, where I'll cover all the other points to make sure that you achieve your action list and your goals. See you shortly.
Stay tuned to Salam Radio after this short ad break.
ये खुद को कोविड-19 और फ्लू से बचाने का वक्त है। अगर आप या खानदान के किसी दूसरे फर्द को इस मौसम सरमा की वैक्सीन लगनी है, तो आप अपॉइंटमेंट बुक करवा सकते हैं या ऑनलाइन वॉक इन क्लिनिक तलाश कर सकते हैं। बस कोविड और फ्लू वैक्सीन पीटरब्रा सर्च करें। अगर आपको इससे पहले भी कोविड-19 या फ्लू वैक्सीन लग चुकी है, खा एक दफा ही या इससे ज्यादा, तब भी इसे दोबारा लगाना और महफूज रहना इस वक्त जरूरी है। लिहाजा मजीद जानने के लिए बस आपको ऑनलाइन तलाश करना है कोविड और फ्लू वैक्सीन पीटरब्रा।
Attention foodies! Discover a world of flavours at Pack Foods, the largest ethnic supermarket in Peterborough. Shop our vast selection of authentic ingredients from around the globe, including spices, marinated fish and meats, and exotic fruits at incredibly low prices. And the best part? We offer free parking. No more hunting for a spot. Come visit us today and explore the incredible range of flavours at Pack Foods, 232 Lincoln Road.
Bite into something wonderfully tasty at Big Mouth, 349 Lincoln Road in Peterborough. Eating in for takeaway or delivery, Big Mouth now have a delicious new menu full of all your favourites. Crispy fried chicken, juicy smashed burgers, finger-licking peri-peri chicken, handmade pizzas, quality doner meat and so much more. So visit the family-friendly Big Mouth restaurant for fantastically fresh food. Call 01733 201020 or visit getbigmouthonline.com.
Could you spare a few hours each month to provide support to people who are going through tough times? If so, Peterborough Samaritans are looking for volunteers who are empathetic and open-minded, and we'd love to hear from you. We run regular information sessions where you can find out more about what it means to volunteer for Samaritans. If you are at least 18 years of age and would like to know more, please email volunteer@peterboroughsamaritans.org.
Fancy the true taste of Middle Eastern Kurdish food? Asia Restaurant gives you the unique fusion of flavours from Turkey, Iraq, Syria and Iran. Eat in at 5 Fitzwilliam Street, Peterborough, PE1 2RU. Or order through Just Eat, Uber Eats or order through our website, asiarestaurant.co.uk. Call us on 01733 562 530. Asia Restaurant, the true taste of the Middle East.
Are you looking for a career where you can make a difference? At Cross Keys Homes, we work with our local communities to create opportunities that change lives. We're looking for enthusiastic, talented people to join our team, from apprenticeships to senior management positions. Cross Keys Homes can support your development while you enjoy great employee benefits. There are so many opportunities for you to shine. Apply to join the Cross Keys Homes team at crosskeyshomes.co.uk.
Peterborough's community radio station, Salam Radio, 106.2 FM.
Assalamu alaikum, good evening. You listen to Salam Radio on 106.2 FM. If you've rejoined us after the break, thank you very much for tuning in again. And if you've just joined us, welcome and thank you for joining. I'm your host, Shaz Nawaz, and you're listening to Wealth Made Simple. And today I am sharing with you how to achieve your goals. And this came about because a few weeks ago, Kieron and I talked about goal setting. And with the best intentions in the world, people set New Year's resolutions, they set goals, and when you look back after a year, some people sometimes don't achieve much of their goals, some people achieve all of them, and most people achieve some of them. So we thought, rather than just sharing the concept and the principle of goal setting, which is important, we should also ensure that we share a detailed action plan or list that people can use, which will help them gain a bit of structure, a bit of clarity, but also steps that they can follow to achieve their goals. Because if you think about it, just because you've set a goal doesn't mean you're going to achieve it, and it doesn't mean that you have an idea about how you're going to achieve it. And I know there's a concept out there which people say, just set the goal, don't do too much, don't worry too much. Sorry, get my teeth back in. Don't worry too much about how. That's fine, but I mean, this isn't how that I'm sharing with you. This is the steps that you need to take, which will increase your likelihood of success, and that's incredibly important. And like I said, if you've done this for a long time, or if you've done it a few times, you're probably more accustomed to things. And if this is all new to you, or if you feel like you don't achieve as much as you could do, or you ought to, or you'd like to, then these action steps are going to help you. And just before the break, the last point that I talked about was to reward yourself and your team for meeting milestones to help people stay motivated, committed, recognized, appreciated, because all those things are incredibly important. And those are part of the fuel that people need to keep them going. Recognition and a pat on the back, it goes a long, long way, let me assure you. With that, with any plan, make sure that you maintain a certain amount of flexibility to adapt the plan due to unforeseen circumstances. So maybe some employees were off sick, maybe somebody had an accident, maybe somebody's had a bereavement, maybe your allocated budget has halved or reduced. Maybe there's some other curved ball's been thrown in where this goal isn't as important now as you thought it was, or you want to allocate less resource to it because something else which is more important or takes priority has come up which you hadn't planned about previously. Whatever it is, having flexibility in a plan is good, and having flexibility in life is good, because being too rigid means that you're not fluid enough, and you don't adapt, okay, and you're just too hard-nosed about things. That might work for some people, but I think generally speaking, those who are more flexible tend to achieve more overall over a certain period. So flexibility is important. It's also important to engage in regular monitoring. Now, this could be a daily meeting, could be a weekly meeting, could be a half-day meeting, could be every 2 days, could be monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly, so on and so forth. You decide on what level or frequency of monitoring you are going to do. But make sure it aligns with the goals and the action plan that you have created. And the point of these meetings, obviously, is to have accountability, which is important. But you could also have a leaderboard. You see who's done more tasks, and then you can kind of create a game around that. So the person who's achieved more of their tasks this week gets to go home early on a Friday, for example, right? Or get some other type of benefit. It should be something meaningful that people care about, rather than just giving them some financial benefit, which most people might not be driven by that. Some may be, most might not. So make sure that whatever incentive that you set, okay, is something that people actually want, and then they're going to strive and drive towards achieving it. And alongside that, the conversation in those meetings is about, okay, what got done, what didn't get done, why didn't it get done, okay, how do we make sure we get back on track, what support do people need, okay, and how are they going to go about making sure that they catch up. Because I'm not a huge fan of saying, oh, we've slipped a bit here, so now extend the deadline. No, let's now see what we can do to make sure we can get back on track. That's a better conversation to have. Inevitably, it might lead to we need to extend the deadline because there's more slippage here than we anticipated. But there's got to be good reason for that. And just changing the deadline every time something doesn't get done means it'll be a never-ending deadline. Therefore, it's not a real deadline. Deadline shouldn't change. Okay, that's why I said earlier on, it's better to have some slack time, okay, and a generous deadline up front, rather than keeping it very tight and pressurized and then having to change it 4 times or 5 times or however many times. So, and then obviously sharing good practice, keeping people motivated through those meetings is important, alongside obviously recognizing achievements. And I think in those meetings it's really important that you create an atmosphere and an environment where you can ask for feedback and everybody else can ask for feedback from stakeholders, team members, anybody involved in this particular goal setting or project. Because feedback helps us to improve things, and feedback is the breakfast of champions. So we should always be open to feedback because it helps us to improve and grow and develop. And feedback to individuals on their performance, feedback on the overall goal, feedback on the different steps, feedback on how the teams are working. All of these things are incredibly important. Now, depending on the complexity of your particular goal and your action steps, I tend to kind of, for the smaller ones, just use Excel. I just find it easier. You can have a Word document. You can have it on a whiteboard, for example. Or, if you want to be a bit more sophisticated, you can use a project management tool. And there's plenty of good ones out there. I'm not going to recommend any. I've used a few different ones over the years, some really good ones. And these tools help you stay organized and are a communication system, so they help people stay informed of what's going on as things go on. Because let's say someone's got a problem, okay, and you're having a weekly meeting, and the meeting's every Monday morning. But someone's got a problem on Tuesday or Wednesday. No point them saving it till the following Monday to share that. If you've got a project management tool, then you can just use that as you go along, and people can post in there when they've got a challenge, and others can then share best practice and obviously also offer support. And it works really well. Something else that I used to do, which used to work really, really well, is we used to have a daily huddle. So everybody used to get together in a particular team and talk about what went well yesterday, what did they achieve, what are their goals for today, okay, and simple as that. And it was just a very quick 5-7 minute huddle, because there's kind of small sub teams of anywhere from 2 to 5 people, and then we used to have a whiteboard, and we used to put the actions up there, maximum 3 for everybody. Next day you review that, and then you add different actions, and it keeps people on track and keeps them moving, okay? Because momentum beats meditation in this particular instance, and meditation is important as well, but momentum and movement are important to make sure that things go on and get done. What's really important in all this really is to make sure that you keep your team committed to the plan, even when you face challenges. And therefore, you've got to think about when the chips are down, okay, and when things aren't working out, how am I going to keep my team enthusiastic? What things am I going to introduce? How am I going to make sure that I keep them excited as they were when we set the goals at the start? Because when you face challenges and things don't quite go well, the level of commitment tends to reduce. And if that reduces, and the activity reduces, if that reduces, the performance reduces, and if that reduces, the overall outcome and results reduce, decline, don't get done. So make sure you have something to make people or keep people committed. And it's important that you communicate your plan effectively with everybody involved. So everybody has crystal clarity in terms of what they need to do and how they're going to go about doing it, so that there's no room and space. I didn't quite understand that. That wasn't made clear to me. I wasn't really clear if that was my task or my job. I thought that was for somebody else. I thought this had to be done later. I've pretty much heard all the excuses under the sun to some extent over the last 21 years. And remember, excuses and results are mutually exclusive. You're either doing one or the other. I know which one I'd rather be doing. Now, you also need to make sure that you clarify when things go wrong and obstacles arise. How do we go about solving them? Is it a team meeting? Do people have a mentor? Do they have a buddy system? Do they go in the project management system and ask for help? What do they do when they stumble? And importantly, how do we give them confidence that when if they feel things aren't right, because something's not right, kind of in their head in terms of they don't feel confident, or they've got things going on at home, or they just kind of feel like they've lost their mojo, or they're having a bad day. Okay, what things are you going to build in there to offer them the support that they need, and have an arm around them, so that they stay enthusiastic? And I think most people underestimate this and don't give it the priority that they ought to, and that's partly why they don't achieve everything they set out to achieve. So you've got to have something in plan for when things don't get done and how you fix them. The next one is to make sure that you collect and analyze data. I'm a huge fan of that. I'm an accountant. I love data, but make sure you've got there the information there to collect and analyze data, because the analysis will show you patterns, will show you correlations, will build a story, and it'll tell you, the data will tell you what to do and what not to do. So data is incredibly important, and it gives you insights into things that you might not pick up, you might not be aware of, and things that you can use for the future. So this isn't just for that particular goal or that particular project. It's resource and information, useful information that you can use going forward. The next one is a very common one, and I think it's safe to say that everybody has been affected by this more often than not, and that is distractions. And you've got to find ways of keeping people focused on their objective without getting distracted. And what I usually do is say, listen, there are going to be distractions. No one starts work at 9 o'clock and sits there and bangs out work all the way till 4, 5, 6, whatever time they finish. People do have a bit of slack. So I tend to build 25% slack time every single day. So up front, I'll say, you're going to do it anyway. I know you are. So there's no point trying to pretend that, I expect you to work every second, every minute, every hour of the day. It's not going to happen. So if you're working 8 hours, 2 hours, I'm going to write off that you're going to look at your phone and make a cup of tea and coffee and chat to your colleague and go on the internet, that kind of stuff. You know what? I know you do that. You know you do that. So let's be cool with it and let me give you that time anyway. But I'll give you that time. Don't abuse that by making 25%, 45%, 50%, so on and so forth. But I think if you give people some boundaries and some flexibility and autonomy, most people will respect and appreciate that and won't abuse it. So build that slack in anyway, because they're going to do it anyway. So why not just kind of own up to it and create an open environment where you say it's acceptable to a certain degree and limit. And my condition on that is you've got to be achieving your goals. So I'm giving you some slack time, you're still not achieving your goals, then you're abusing that particular opportunity, and therefore you're letting the whole team down. So avoid distractions, but also build in time for distractions and build in an environment where there's minimal distractions. The next one is to practice resilience. How do you as a team bounce back from setbacks quickly? How do you help individuals bounce back quickly? Do you have training in place? Do you have mentoring in place? Do you have a buddy system in place? What mechanism do you have in place to help people get back on track? Do you have external support that they can call on? A coach or something else? Just to help them realign and refocus so that they get back on track. Because if you don't have that, people will slip. If you don't have the necessary support mechanism, then they're likely to slip again and slip regularly. The next one is, I think it's really important, incredibly important, that you build an environment where your team members can openly seek support. So it's a supportive environment where they can go to their peers or their seniors, superiors, team leads, supervisors, so on and so forth. Say, I've got an issue here. How do I go around it? I've thought about it, and here's the 2 or 3 things that I could do, but I'm not sure which one's going to be the most important, or whether there's something that I'm missing. So build that within your team so people have confidence that they can go out to their team members or peers or colleagues, seek support, because we all need support. We all have good days and bad days. We all have other things going on in our lives, which sometimes tend to take our focus away. We all have periods where we lose that kind of extra 5% that we're giving it, because it's just become mundane. And maybe, just maybe, the tasks that or the activity that you gave somebody, maybe that's not their strength. Maybe you want them to try something and it isn't quite right for them. Take them off it. Move them somewhere else, because you're just going to relieve the burden. And they're going to appreciate the fact that you recognized this was something that they either don't like doing, or maybe don't have the expertise or don't have the enthusiasm, and they've tried their best and they've given it a go and it isn't quite working out. So best say, okay, let's move you elsewhere and get somebody else to come in here so that the whole thing keeps moving. Movement and momentum, as I've said a couple of times before, are important. You've also got to make sure that you reflect on your progress, and everybody in your team reflects, and hear them out, okay, and see how what language they use, how they're talking about, okay, what they're reflecting on. Is it positive, negative? Is it enthusiastic? Is it all doom and gloom? Is it all about them moaning about where the goal or the level of work or the lack of support or the lack of training or the lack of resource, so on and so forth? Hear them out, okay, reflecting on the progress, and then do some things to address their concerns. Otherwise, if you don't do anything, they say, well, we had all this time talking about why we think things aren't working out, and the boss, the governor, the gaffer just wasn't interested. And if you're interested, you listen, and then you yourself reflect and make certain changes. And the last one here, and this is number 25, by the way, in case you're keeping count, is celebrate your success at the end of the project, okay, or the goal, so that everybody feels like it was worth it. So this celebration is a collective as a team, going out for a meal, or going to watch a sporting event, or going for a day out, or just going to a spa, or whatever works. Again, you ask your team members what they prefer, and then build things within that. But celebrate success that way, and then obviously also celebrate success by joining some of the spoil by sharing some of the spoils. Because if everybody gets some financial benefit alongside other benefits, then you're creating platform where everybody benefits. So they are doing the hard work, and it's my inherent belief they ought to be rightfully rewarded for that. But also, okay, they should get something on top as an incentive or a bonus, so that they can see that they also benefited personally. And I know some might say, "Oh well, I paid them a salary to do that." Well, how's that plan working out for you? Just because you're paying a salary doesn't mean people do everything that they're supposed to on time, every time. So build something extra to help people, okay, recognize, understand that you recognize when they are doing a good job. So that's my list for you. But obviously, if you haven't set goals, it's never too late. And I'm not a big fan of saying, "Oh, let's set goals just because it's January." No, set goals when goals are needed. And if that happens to be May, then be it May or August or September or whatever. And you don't just, I don't think, sitting there once a year after Christmas when you're bored and you've got 2 or 3 days to go to work, say, let me sit here and set my goals for the following year. I mean, that's an opportune time, and most people do it then, but I don't think it's the be-all end-all to do it then. You do it when you feel it's right, and cultivate and create an environment where people can feel like that they are making a difference. Because if you don't, as all of us know, as human beings, we tend to get bored pretty quickly. We tend to get distracted very quickly. We tend to think the grass is greener on the other side or elsewhere, and the grass is seldom green anywhere else. Okay, it's just we don't tend to recognize the green grass that we have because we just camouflage that, okay, with our own perception in terms of what we think is happening, and that is usually isn't a very good place to be. And of course, with the best intention in the world, setting any goals and then not doing the action is guaranteed to reach or to end in failure. So why would you do that? Why would you spend so much time setting your goals, creating your goals, okay, and being excited about them, but then not having a clear, okay, defined process like the one I've shared with you, with this 25-step, okay, process. And remember, the step 1 was to actually set the goal. Step 2 was focus on the goal, on one goal at a time. And number 25 was celebrating success when a goal is achieved. So make sure you have some mechanism there to help you succeed more often than you fail. Because if you don't have this, and when I never had this, I used to achieve less. Having had this now and having a process, I achieve more because you can see here, it helps you to realign things. It helps you with accountability. It gives you visibility. You have a support mechanism. People can ask questions. There's clear deadlines. You're tracking your process. Okay, you're using tools out there which increase your likelihood of success. You're communicating things properly. You're gathering information and analyzing it and using that data to make better decisions. Okay, you're reducing distractions there, and thereby increasing focus, okay, and creating a supportive environment, and you're reflecting on progress, and you're celebrating success. So this pretty much is, I think, the roadmap, the detailed roadmap, which will help you to achieve your goals more often. And obviously the after test is for you to go away, set some goals, or if you already set them, use this, okay, to create a very clear plan to go about achieving your goals. And I'd be delighted to hear from you at some point in the future. You say, Shaz, I tried it out, and either that this didn't work, which I'm telling you it will work, because it's a tried, tested, trusted process that I've built over time. But if it didn't work for you, okay, I'll be keen to hear why you think it didn't work, and then that gives me something to do in terms of I'll then give you input to share with you how I think you can improve it. But if you do it, I'm pretty certain, okay, I'll bet my bottom dollar that if you follow this, you will achieve more. How much more, I don't know, because I don't know you and I don't know how you work. But what I know is you'll achieve more. And if you do this for 3 months, and then you reflect and compare those 3 months, the previous 3 months, or the previous 3 years, if you like, you'll see that you achieved more because you had a process. And processes are powerful. So I hope you found that useful. And this, alongside the episode on goal setting, will give you a new drive, will give you a new focus that will help you be more determined about achieving your goals and therefore ensuring that you have a better output. Until next week, same place, same time, take good care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.